My experience with the Persona series started with Persona 4 Golden on the Vita. It was recommended by someone who has now sadly passed away. I was completely hooked throughout the 100-hour journey, and I loved Persona 5, but I never played Persona 3. I was always kind of afraid that it would be difficult going backwards with the lack of improvements and quality of life changes made with more recent Persona games. But after Persona 3 Portable was recently reported to modern systems, I couldn't resist giving it a try.
By my hand.
So if you're unfamiliar with Persona 3, I'm going to give a quick introduction. This is a story-focused JRPG that originally released on the PlayStation 2. You're a kid at high school who joins a group of students who spend their nights raiding the mysterious tower of Tartarus.
Tartarus? What's that? Sounds like toothpaste.
Together they'll fight shadow monsters with the power of their personas. Personas are powerful beings and manifestations of their inner selves, and they're summoned by shooting themselves in the head. You'd think that little detail would make this a really controversial game, but there was very little controversy. Persona 3 even won an award for being the most controversial game that created no controversy. They dodged a bullet there.
It's not a real gun, of course.
But you do all this while balancing your schoolwork and social life. One of the things I really like about Persona games is that the two sides of the game interweave with each other. There's benefits and consequences to your actions affecting both sides of the game. Like improving friendships can affect the power of your personas.
The stronger your social links, the more powerful your persona ability.
Or maybe you could doze off in class to give yourself more energy for raiding Tartarus later that night, but that comes at the cost of your intelligence and exam results. Hey, I'm trying to grow the channel. My goal is to reach 1000 subs, so any support would be greatly appreciated. Thanks. I've just finished Persona 3 for the first time, and it was hands down brilliant. Caster 3 might be my most favourite across all the games. But there is a big downside. This portable version has got to be the worst way to experience this game. It would have been much better if they re-released the FES version of the game. It is much better. Apparently the developers have lost the original source code for FES, and that's why we got the portable version. And I think this is something you should be aware of if you want to play Persona 3. While the portable version does have a few unique features, like you can fully control all your party members in combat, and there's an option to play an alternative female main character. But there are far more negatives in the portable version. A large portion of the game plays more like a point-and-click adventure, while in the original game you could explore the world on foot, and it just felt more immersive. The story and character writing is fantastic, but I have issues with how the story is presented here. It feels more like a visual novel with 2D background art, while in FES we see 3D models, fully animated and part of the world during events and stories. There were some scenes that just completely lost their impact when you're reading text, as opposed to seeing it happen in the world or even during an FMV sequence. And that background art seems to have gone through some kind of bad filter, or it's just sharpened too much, because it looks way worse than the original backgrounds on the PSP. It already sucks that the background art takes the place of a fully 3D world like in Persona 3 or FES, but the background being really low quality is just salt on the wound. You know, I am being overly negative about the changes in this portable version, but it speaks for only how good Persona 3 is that I still loved playing it for the first time, even without any nostalgia. I loved playing it now, and I would have loved playing it on the PlayStation 2 or PSP, but I'm pretty sure I would have enjoyed the FES version even more. So, some things I really liked about Persona 3. I really liked the main characters. They're all high school students dealing with their own issues and insecurities, and they're quite well written and relatable. I mentioned earlier the cast of characters might be my most favourite in any Persona game. They're all badasses.
Enemy annihilated.
There was one character, Junpei, who's a bit of a slacker.
Me? I'm Junpei Iori. Nice to meet you.
I wasn't sure if I'd get on with him at first, but throughout the story he developed and he grew on me. I also really like how support characters work across the Persona series. You've got your typical 4 party members on the front line, but you can also assign a character to support from the sidelines. I just think that's a really cool way of getting an extra character involved, and it lets you make use of extra little support abilities. Before going into Persona 3, I heard that the game had rap music, and I'm not really a big fan of rap, to be honest. It was fine, it was good, overall the soundtrack was fantastic. And just overall, P3 has brilliant storytelling. I was hooked on this every night. I've been playing this on my Steam Deck in bed and I've missed out on so much sleep just because I can't put the game down. So I played Persona 4 and 5 before 3, and that does mean I was missing some of the quality of life improvements or refinements that came with the newer games. There is a tiredness system where your characters become tired after taking so many steps in Tartarus, or getting knocked out. Tired characters take a lot more damage and dish out a lot less damage, which could make some mini-bosses very challenging. Tiredness was annoying, but at least you could get some sleep and return to Tartarus. You're given about a month to deal with each section of Tartarus, and progressing Tartarus could get a little bit grindy. Especially if you're a completionist like me and try to complete every single side mission. There are rumours that a Persona 3 remake is in the works, and there's claims that it will be announced this year. I think this makes sense. The developers have lost the original source code for Fez, and Portable is a mostly inferior version of the game, so to me it makes a lot of sense to remake this, 17-year-old game? Persona kind of blew up even more with number 5, and I think you're going to get a load of new players discovering the older games. I think they're going to struggle with going back to the experience currently being offered with Persona 3 Portable. I'm kind of really hungry to replay Persona 4 Arena now. And that's because I know the story and characters of Persona 3 better. So if you have any interest in JRPGs, you must check out the Persona series, but just be aware that the portable version of 3 is the worst way to play. If you can get the Fez version, I'd recommend playing that instead, even if you have to emulate it.
Stop! You violated the law!
Fingers crossed we see an announcement for a Persona 3 remake this year, but peace for now.